kind of talked about in his announcement that we had a doohickey prep thing, but I didn't see it on the content. Did you guys see anything about it?
I didn't see a doohickey prep either.
Did you look on the doohickey reminder for this week? I can look in there real quick.
I'm in it. I can look real quick too. I didn't see a reminder
Maybe
anywhere in week 6.
Yeah, I didn't see one in week 6 either. Maybe it's in week 7.
Let me check. Week 7. Yeah, it says plan ahead doohickey problem week 7. So
Okay.
it's not till next week.
All right.
But isn't it due and it's week 8?
Yeah, in week 8.
I mean, next week.
So I guess we'll get started on that next week.
Yeah.
Just finished it. Yeah, we'll have to stay on top of it this time. It's only 2 weeks. But I thought our last one looked pretty good before we submitted it.
Yeah.
So did you guys have the opportunity to read the case?
Yes, I had the opportunity.
It's
yes,
pretty long.
Read it.
Yeah.
It was.
So is the question, did you take the opportunity to?
Yeah.
Since we all had it.
So, yeah, it's a pretty interesting case. What were your guys' thoughts about it?
I thought it was really hard to nail down what the ideal candidate was, because to me it didn't sound like they really knew. I think they kind of had an idea, but I don't know, it didn't seem real articulate.
They didn't have like a set way to judge each candidate, I guess.
Right.
So, all right. There's quite a few questions this week, so we'll just jump right into them. So the first part is, who do you think that they should hire out of those 4 candidates? Which 2?
I'll just go first. Out of reading them, to be honest, I think Andy Sanchez, just because, I mean, he has some really good business experience and he's self-driven. The reason his GPA was so low was because he was paying for not only his own college, but also like his siblings' college. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's why his grades weren't as good, because he was focusing. But, like, he had a really good, GMAT and SAT was really high. So he's obviously a really smart guy. He's a second-year MBA. So I think out of all of them, he's social. People like him. I think he'd be good.
Yeah, and I think in there it said that they were looking for people with like an entrepreneurial background too, right. So he'd fit that perfect.
I'll tell you from my experience, I didn't pick him just because I've been an entrepreneur, and it is really hard to go from entrepreneur to 9 to 5. And that banking business doesn't sound like it's 9 to 5. Sounds like it's like 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. or something. I don't know. You know, they said how the first
7 days a week.
Yeah. So the thing with entrepreneurs will work really hard and they'll work long hours, but they really value control of their time. You know, I could work an 18-hour day, but I'd go to the school for my kid getting some award, at 2 p.m. And it's really hard to, if you're working for yourself to then go work on somebody else's time schedule. So that would be my concern with him, plus his lack of financial and banking experience. So those were the two things. I just didn't think, when you look at overall fit, I just didn't think he'd have that overall fit.
Fair enough.
So which one would you choose then?
Well, we got to pick two, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
pick two.
Before this class, I probably wouldn't have picked Natalia, but after the section on diversity and how, bringing somebody in, and she's definitely super smart, has good experience, a great resume, her language experience. Man, for a banking firm that wants to maybe reach out more to women business owners, I couldn't even really tell whether it was mainly investment banking or business banking, but I would think that her experience, if they wanted to expand the customers that they go after and the customers that they attract, I think she could be really good with that and maybe give them a little different perspective. They didn't really mention much about this company's diversity, whether all these people at Super Saturday were men, white men. Almost sounded like a kind of good old boys club. Do you guys get that impression?
It kind of,
yeah.
So that's why I would pick her. She's got all the positives. Plus, I think she could really bring a healthy perspective that could really help the business. So that was one choice, and then the other choice was Ken. I know they had the concerns about him being a family man, but that's also super good incentive for him to be successful, is to be able to provide for his family, because he certainly doesn't want to, be 6 months into something and not be able to provide for his family. When I was a business owner, I loved hiring people with lots of kids because they work hard. They had to, provide for their family. So those were my two picks.
Well, I guess I still got one more. The reason I didn't do Ken is because, they want to hire someone that's going to stay. And I know too many professors on campus, especially accounting ones, that have worked for like Big Four tax companies who said that because they worked 24/7, it was so hard on their family life that it just wasn't worth it. So I figured for long term, he's not going to stay like they want. But my second one was definitely going to be Natalia. I think she's spunky and she's smart and she's self-driven. The language barrier could be an issue. I know for me, I hate it because they're all from India and I can't understand a word they're saying. But I think that's something where she knows all these different languages. Like if they do any type of international business, she'd be the one to go to. She'd be the one to meet with. So I think she'd be really good for that specifically. So Natalia is definitely my second.
Sweet. So it didn't really give a lot of information about each candidate in the case. What other things would you guys like to know about each person?
Well, who did you pick, Jerem?
Oh, well, I was also thinking Andy for sure. I didn't really think about that other aspect that he might want to might not like that 9 to 5 job. And then I also picked Ken too. So
The other thing with Andy just experience with an entrepreneur, it is, he said he was going to have his brother run the business. I mean, why didn't he have his brother run the business so he could focus on school?
True.
yeah,
And it is super, super hard. If you don't sell the business, just flat out sell the business, it is super hard to get away from a business, especially if you have, still have a financial interest in it. So I'd just be worried about his, he's got one foot in his
Still,
business and
yeah.
one foot in the bank. But anyway.
Yeah, I definitely overlooked that aspect. I just thought he would have been perfect for what they're looking for, but it doesn't really say what exactly they're looking for either. So
Right.
So yeah, anyways, what other information would you like to know about each of these candidates?
That's a good question. Because we read, shoot, what is it? I have it right here. The first reading, the good times and bad, is like you want to plan for someone who's going to stay. So I would want to know. The question is like how long they planned on staying. Like how much did this job mean to them? That kind of a thing. That makes sense.
Where they see themselves in 5 years.
Right. Yeah.
That type of cliche
Can
question.
you turn on the light?
Yeah. So pretty much there to see how committed they are to staying in the company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nobody chose Martin. What do you think about transferability of skills, like military skills to business skills, the leadership?
No, I don't know much about the military. I feel like it's very cut and dry, very exact. With business, I mean, you got to be able to roll with things because not everything's going to work out the way you want it. I don't know.
Yeah, see, I'd like to know a lot more about Martin. Obviously he's got it didn't say anything about his undergraduate degree, but he's a second year Wharton MBA. I mean, you got to be really smart to get into Wharton. So, I mean, that's where the Trumps went.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's got to be really smart. Everybody had concerns about him, about business or financial experience. But like I said, to get into Wharton MBA program, you got to have some good grades as far as an undergraduate, and some type of related, whether it's finance or business or accounting or economics, something like that. But they were kind of hung up on his being involved in a lot of other recruiting, which sounds like he's maybe somebody that other companies really want. So
Yeah, sounded like they just maybe didn't want to waste time on him if he's going to go to a different place.
Right.
But I thought about Martin quite a bit. I thought he would have been a really good employee.
he's probably the one that we need the more information about, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
It's interesting how we kind of exclude people when we don't have enough information
info.
or all the information. Yeah.
So, what other information would you like to know about Martin?
Yeah. So what was his undergraduate degree in? What was his GPA in that? How did he get into Wharton?
Mm-hmm.
And, how would he see his substantial leadership experience translating into the banking business?
Okay.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know how, his military experience could help him in the banking world.
Says he has a dynamic personality, was confident and articulate. It almost sounds like, just from reading the stuff about these, like one of the concerns they had with the guy that had worked the Ken the family guy. It's like he had worked his way up really quick at one of the big five accounting firms. And so the bankers were like worried that he wouldn't take direction. It's like, really? Do you want a go-getter, or do you want somebody that just a yes man?
Yeah.
Right.
So, I guess what question would you ask for Martin to know how he could incorporate his leadership skills into the business world?
Was that really one of the questions?
No,
Oh.
it just says
I'm like,
what how would you get that information? That's one of the questions.
I'm like, man, that's pretty weird. We were just talking about that.
That's funny.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Just what would you ask Martin to be able to see how he would incorporate his leadership into the business world?
I would just use one of the situational questions like it talked about. I would say, it sounds like you have substantial leadership experience in the military. How do you give me a specific scenario that you would envision in our working in the banking industry? How would you be able to translate that leadership into this company? Something like that. It's kind of general, but you'd want them to be specific. Like have him come up with a hypothetical situation.
Yeah,
right. Because we wanted to come up with a question that, they can use an example to show how they've handled something in the past, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I really don't know how you do that with banking and military, but
Yeah.
I think Norman was as close as I can even think of. So
If I were him, I haven't been in the military and I haven't been in the banking industry, but if I were him, I would respond to a question like that with, well, a lot of the skills are similar. For instance, if there was a big deal going down to where we were trying to raise capital for a venture that we're going to back, and there was a lot of conflict between the sides and a lot of drama and a lot of stress, I would be able to stay focused on the goal. And just like when I was rescuing the soldiers that were pinned down in Bosnia, there was a lot of things going on, but we were able to just focus on our end goal, which was getting those guys out. And so focusing on the goal of getting this venture funded and attacking each little obstacle that came along, and just getting rid of one obstacle and going on to the next one with that goal in mind, I'm able to give that focus. So that would be how I would kind of answer it. And you'd be like, oh, okay, that's good. We want somebody that can be focused on a goal and overcome obstacles and work towards that.
Yeah,
And
I
Norman's
really
got it
like
down.
that. Yeah, that was awesome. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up part one. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about with the different candidates that stuck out to you?
The thing that came into that I put down when I was making notes on Martin, some of the negatives, and I think, if the bankers, when they're doing their meeting and trying to get through and decide, it's been super helpful for me to write down pros and cons. So you write down, all the pros and write down the cons. So some of the cons, and if they have more cons than pros, or the cons outweigh the pros, then it helps you kind of make the decision for you. With Martin, there were a couple of red flags. One was the lack of experience, and again, maybe that's just lack of information. But the other thing was, there's a question about, they question, his loyalty, that he might just be using this as a negotiating tool to get, different salary, which I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. You want a good negotiator if you're in banking and investment and things. So, okay, so does his loyalty, did he learn loyalty in the military, and would that apply to this? But I think why I kind of excluded Martin was just the unknowns. So.
Yeah, that's good. It kind of goes into the next part. It says, why is there so much disagreement between the senior bankers in the Saturday meeting about which recruits to hire?
I know exactly the answer to that.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I've got this going on with an issue with the board right now. The reason why there's differences is because they're using subjective measures instead of what's the opposite of subjective?
Concrete? I don't know. Facts?
There's a word it's escaping my mental. If you have you guys done, like, in a business class, a weighted average?
Yeah.
Okay, so you take all the you take all the it's a very quantitative way to analyze things.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they're having this is because they're going off of gut feelings, they're going off of perceptions, they're going off of opinions. Those are all things that can be subjective. One person sees this quality in a person, and another person sees another thing. Whereas if you took all the applicants and gave them a test, you'd see how they score on the test. And it'd be real easy to say, okay, well, we'll just give the job to the top 5 scores. And you don't want to just use subjective measures. You also want to, get a feel if they're going to fit in the culture. But if you only use everybody's impressions, opinions, and feelings, it's going to be really hard to narrow it down and make a good decision.
Yeah.
So are you saying like have them do like in-work tests, like actually try to do some of the work and see what they're capable of?
No, what it was interesting because I'm looking at this, and they have the sample pages from his evaluation book, and it shows like all the people they interviewed with, and it looks like each person kind of just puts a few notes down here. Questions, why he didn't get an offer from something, likes background, falls short on number something, understands personality aspects. I don't know, it's even hard to read this guy's notes. But it has that, but then it goes down and it has a associate evaluation form, candidate, evaluator, school, date, and it has things for them to rate outstanding, good, fair, unsatisfactory, under commitment to firm, judgment, maturity, interpersonal skills, leadership, technical skills, work ethic, overall rating. I did I miss it, or are they using this or not using it? Because it seems like if they use this, this would be more of a qualitative ranking. So you could, you know, give 4 points for outstanding and
kind of count it
1
up.
point for unsatisfactory, and just add up the scores, and then just compare those 4 people's scores. And you're probably going to have a couple people with, you know, the highest scores overall, because it's going to kind of average out with everybody ranking these people. So I don't know if if they don't have a clear assessment to where they can score or give a value to it, but that's what I would recommend if I were like a consultant that was just kind of a fly on the wall watching their process and saying, look guys, you can make this process a little simpler if you standardize it a little better, or you know, make some qualitative analysis with some scores or something like that. But yeah, I think that would help.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea as well. So besides that sheet, what are some other things that they could use to measure each candidate?
I don't want to talk too much if Zeb's got some ideas, but you know,
Yeah.
I've done quite a bit of hiring before, and what we did this last time is it was a pretty extensive hiring process. And what we did is we put out the job description and requirements, and so then we had the applicants, and we had one position, and we had probably got about 40 resumes or applications for it. And we went and kind of narrowed it down. If they didn't have any type of construction experience, this was for a field worker for the water district. If they didn't have any type of construction experience or any water certs, then we didn't invite them to the testing. So then we invited about 20 people to come in and take a written test. It was real similar to water certification things. And it was interesting because we had people that didn't have any water experience, didn't have any certs, that scored higher on that test than some people that had water certifications. So then I think what we did is we took the top 10. Yeah, I think we interviewed about 10 people. So then we took the top 10 people from the testing, and brought them in for interviews. And so I had my field operations supervisor interview them because he's got to work with them every day.
Yeah.
And then I interviewed them, and we had I gave the supervisor probably about like 40 different questions. I said, you know, you don't have to get through all the questions. Just take about a half hour with each person and kind of ask them, you know, some of these questions, and you can also ask them, you know, if something comes to your mind, ask them that question. And so then after the interview with the supervisor, then I interviewed with them, and you know, ask them some of those situational questions, and then I kind of threw in some ones like, okay, we're out in the field and you're down in the hole, and you smell something, and you tell the supervisor, you know, kind of smells like gas or something in here, and he tells you, oh, we got to get this leak stopped, just keep digging or whatever. What would you do? You know, just some things like that. And you know, so I interviewed them, and then afterwards we myself and the supervisor sat down and kind of compared notes, and you know, said, well, what we kind of narrowed it down to the top 3 people. We said, what worries you about this person? You know, kind of went over pros and cons of those top 3 people. And you know, it's kind of interesting because one guy, a couple of red flags with him. We checked on a reference. He had gotten fired from a job, but he said it was because, you know, it was kind of a union environment, and he was a real go-getter, wanted to work hard, but they just wanted to, you know, do the minimum amount of work, and so he was making them look bad, and so they kind of colluded with the supervisor to get him fired so that they could get one of their friends hired. So, you know, it's like, so, you know, it's like going with that, it's like, okay, I can see where that could be the case, but then he was really, it didn't seem like he'd really take direction very well. And then another guy, you know, he said he could work 12 hours a day without breaking a sweat, and then want to go to the gym and work out afterwards. And he looked like, I mean, he was like big, muscular. We're like, man, we could put this guy digging all day, you know, that'd be kind of enticing to have somebody just say, hey, dig here, and they, you know,
They go at it.
they just dig.
Yeah.
But he seemed like he'd maybe be a little bit high maintenance. You know, he's maybe almost too hyper. And
Yeah.
then we had another guy that was just, you know, sincere and wanting to learn, and he was one of the guys that didn't have any water experience. He had some. He was like a bike mechanic, but we knew he was good with his hands, and he's, for all the people that did well on the test without knowing anything, and then we later found out that he had like taken the initiative before the test to like just go on the internet and learn about the water industry, and that's why he did so good on the written test. We're like, this guy did better than some of the people that already, you know, passed the state test.
Yeah.
And, you know, just seemed like a real sincere guy. He's a family guy, you know, just married a year or 2 ago. And so he was the guy we ended up hiring, and he has worked out incredibly well. I mean, just, you know, will take initiative, but not, you know, go too far overboard. A quick learner, you know, willing to take direction, do anything we told him. So, you know, if you really take the time and have a good process to screen people, test people, and interview people, it really works out. One of the things I thought was just a recipe for disaster was, you know, rushing the process. You know, if I were them, I would just say, you know, let's hold off. You know, you guys go home, get out of the snow or whatever, and maybe have the Ray guy, kind of talk to everybody individually, or bring these 4 people back, a week later or something. It seems like they got plenty of time until spring when they have to do orientation.
Yeah. So you covered pretty much everything that was listed here.
That's actually what I was going to say. What Norman said is basically have them do some type of test and put them in a situation. That's what they actually do at Melaleuca. So when they're hiring, they have a series of tests that they do to see your capability and see also like your willingness, what drives you, that kind of stuff, and under pressure.
Yeah.
Did you work for Melaleuca or apply with them?
Actually, the girl I interviewed was the HR rep. She's an HR rep for Melaleuca. So when we did that first assignment, like in the first or second week, I just talked to her and she went through the steps of what they do. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
The international business professor for international business class last semester is like the head of international business development for Melaleuca.
Really?
Yeah. That was kind of interesting.
That's crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything that you guys said is pretty much what's on the list here. It gives a few examples of what you might do. And one of them is have applicants demonstrate the ability to do a certain job or task. Have them spend a whole day with someone to see what the job is like. Have them do internships. Do the interviews, but focus on behavioral questions like tell me about a time when you disagreed with your boss. What did you do? And have interviewers ask the same questions and evaluate applicants based on the same criteria. So pretty much covered all those points.
Yeah, standardized things. It just seems like they weren't. Everybody kind of did their own thing and came up with their own conclusions.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess we'll kind of move on to the next part. So in there it talked about the different schools that they would go to recruit. Why do you think that was important? What school choices they decided to go to?
The reason they stopped, what was it, Harvard? Like they stopped taking just recruits from those bigger schools was because they weren't getting all the biggest and brightest. They were getting people who still attended that school but weren't doing as well as those who were getting really good GPAs. So that's why they went with other top 15 schools who could also, it was their top students that they were taking and interviewing. So I think that's one of the reasons why they split off to those other schools.
Yeah, for sure. They're getting like the top of the class at the other schools where they were getting maybe the middle of the class at the top schools.
Yeah.
So do you guys feel like that makes sense for them to do?
I kind of wondered about it just because I don't know. Maybe they felt they couldn't. I just don't know what their compensation structure was, and maybe they can't compete with the Goldman Sachs, who can go to Harvard, offer the top of the class at Harvard, a $200,000 a year starting salary, and this bank, because they're a smaller bank, just can't compete with that. So I kind of think that might be the dynamic here, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like, is that they just don't have the resources to compete with those bigger companies. Um, so what are the pros and cons of that approach of recruiting on campus?
Well, you're still going to get lower tier candidates because, if somebody went to Cornell, maybe they went to Cornell because they couldn't get into Harvard. So, I don't know, because I just don't know that job market or the pool. To me, I would think there's plenty of people in that pool, regardless of what school they go to. I think you're going to have a good pool from almost any good business school. And most colleges have decent business schools, so
Mm-hmm.
it might take a little bit more work to kind of sort out and find those good people, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it also talks in there about how they're recruiting from other graduate programs like technology or law. Um, do you guys feel like that makes sense for the company to do that?
I think it does.
Yeah, I was thinking that it does too, just because it's always nice to have a different background, especially like in technology. Like how that's what their company pretty much is they're investing in the growth technology sector. And so it might be nice to not have some technology guys there that can be able to lead them in the right direction. They know what they're talking about. And it did kind of say that's what they were researching. So,
For sure.
okay. So now we're going to go into the Super Saturday. What were the objectives of Super Saturday?
Sounded like, to
Oh,
narrow it down, get 20 people to give offers to and get the 15 acceptances. Kind of fill out their raw recruiting, because it looked like they had 15 people that had been interns or had been offered jobs already. So it's kind of like the other half of their hiring process.
yeah, and it sounded kind of like a few different steps. Like it's a get to know you event. They get to see just how you interact normal. So I mean, if somebody is really antisocial but goes into an interview saying, "Oh yeah, I'm super social," I mean, it's a way to be like, "Yeah, we didn't really see that."
Yeah.
But and then yeah, definitely dive deep into the interviews and pick out the best candidates all in one quick sitting, and just to get it done and taken care of.
I wasn't too much of a fan of the socializing
Mm-hmm.
aspect, but I know that I had the at BYU Provo, they have a lot of summer programs where they recruit um, salespeople, like to sell security systems like Vivint, and other ones where they send students out, usually like return missionaries that have experience knocking on doors and stuff.
Yeah.
But and so they really kind of wine and dine them. Like Vivint had a like almost like a frat house, where there's like pizza, no beer, but
Yeah, it
like
is.
pizza and sodas and pool tables and ping pong, and they
Yeah.
bring them in, and it was kind of the the fun culture type thing to kind of sell them. So I can see where if you're really trying to recruit people, you want them to feel like you're part of the family, like it's a fun place to work. I just don't know if that's the right setting for a bank. Because it didn't sound like, once they started working there, they were going to be like going out to dinner with everybody every night.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, I don't know if it's industry, if it's okay, but to me it seemed a little odd. Like it wasn't like real professional. And like banking, you want people that are real professional, but maybe in the banking industry, they really have to take clients out to dinner and be able to socially click with the client. So I don't know. To me, it was just a little odd.
Yeah. So what did any of the objectives conflict with one another?
What do you mean?
Or like the objectives, like we talked about being able to see like their social side, and then maybe that conflict could be that you could see, or the next day they're supposed to have a serious interview or something.
Yeah, what if one of them like was kind of hungover the next day?
Yeah.
Maybe they want to see how they handle their liquor. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or whether they, that self-control aspect. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it might. I just couldn't nail down what the culture of this banking company was. I mean, they talked about building a culture through hiring.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's almost like they're doing it backwards. It's almost like they should have a company culture, and then the hiring process says, does this person fit our company culture? But I just couldn't put my finger on that.
Yeah, that was interesting. Didn't really think of it that way though. It's good.
Yeah, I would agree with. Oh, freak! Norman. I just spaced your name. That I think it helps to know what like their personality is, because I think like a company's culture is a big part. Like, if you don't have someone who doesn't mesh, it's going to cause a rift. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it was the CEO who talked about, starting out as a lawyer, but then when he was in the law library, he felt it was like torture. And so how is he gonna know whether these people in business school like the banking business? I mean, an entrepreneur is probably not going to like the banking business.
Mm.
My brother-in-law went to BYU and graduated from the Marriott School of Business with a master's in accounting. And he got recruited by a big six accounting firm, worked for them for like, I don't know, maybe less than a year, maybe a year or two. I can't remember, but then he was like, I don't like accounting. It's like, really? Now you figure that out? And so, I had been working with his dad in the security business, and he ended up kind of working with us, and then ended up starting a security business and doing one of those summer marketing programs like, like Vivint did or whatever, and was in the security business. Now he's in like another business, but he's an entrepreneur. And so I just don't see how how they're going to figure out if these people are going to like the banking business with this particular hiring process.
It's a good point.
Yeah, that is a good point. What are some of the pros and cons of the Super Saturday approach?
Is you get it all done in one place, and I think everybody has a pretty competitive nature, so I think that would be an interesting aspect of it.
Yeah. Something that I was thinking of is that they have a chance for all those big bankers to be able to have their say on who they hire too. They're all there at the same time.
Yeah, I do like the fact that it's not just HR doing the recruiting and hiring, that they have newer associates and older ones. The newer ones that really know what it takes, and then you got the older ones that hopefully, you know, kind of have the culture and the big picture thing. So I like including all of those and being able to do all that at once. I think does give a good perspective to the process.
Yeah, for sure. And what about the cons?
The deadline, having to have it done by the end of the day or the middle of the day or when everybody needs to hop on planes to fly back, or you know, whatever they have to do.
And I think it's too rushed. I mean, they're rushing everything, so you're not going to get all the information you might want, or like we talked about earlier, you may not get asked all the questions you want because there's a time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Norman.
No, that's good.
Yeah, those are good points. Okay, just to wrap things up, what are some of the differences between recruiting and hiring?
Isn't recruiting like you going and finding people, and hiring is you actually hire them?
Yeah, I guess in this case, what did we learn about
I
the
think,
differences?
well, I think the difference really, when you're trying to recruit somebody, it's almost like you're trying to sell them on working for you. Whereas I see like a lot of sales organizations, they have to recruit salespeople. Whereas somewhere like Google, Google doesn't have to recruit people. People try to sell themselves to Google. They try to get hired by Google. So I see that as that's kind of what I was thinking when you
It's
asked
kind
that
of like
question.
the roles reverse.
Yeah, who's attracting who?
Yeah, that's a good point. Interesting.
Yeah, I see that.
I see hiring as just kind of filling slots. You know, let's say you have a factory and you need to put 10 more people on the assembly line. Okay, so you hire 10 people. Recruiting takes a lot more work.
Yeah.
So, what did you learn from this case about recruiting?
Well, based off of that definition, is I think if someone uses the word that they're trying to recruit you, I think it means that they really want you because you have something that they really need. But if you're going to get hired on, I think they're the ones that have the power in a sense, and you kind of need them. So you got to sucker up to them, whereas when they're recruiting, they're suckering up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the last question is just what did you learn about hiring in this case? So we kind of already gone over the two different.
Yeah, the thing I see, the more you put into it, the more deliberate the process is, the more thought out the process is, the better quality employees you'll end up with. I think that's the lesson I got from this.
Yeah. And something that I picked up in our discussion is that, like you said earlier, having something that is subjective or whatever, that you can kind of ask them the same questions and get an understanding of where they rate on each question. Give you a number to go off of.
Okay, I remember the word now. Objective would be like a test score. Subjective would be, are they an assertive person? And it's an opinion.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so subjective, objective.
Objective.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Need a little bit of each.
Yeah.
In the process. I think the process is key. You have to have a good process.
Yeah, it's something that just can't be determined by opinions of each person.
You can't just wing it. That was one of the things when we were going to do the hiring process. One of the biggest mistakes that interviewers make is flying by the seat of their pants. Not having pre-prepared questions. You don't have to use them all, but if you just fly by the seat of your pants and just kind of make up questions as you go, you'll probably won't do very good questions. So you have to have a process, something.
Yeah. Yep, I like that. So that's pretty much it for this week.
All right.
Would you want to post that for me, Norman?
I will post that. Let's say hi to everybody that's going to watch this on video.
Yeah.
We should do like a secret password that we say at the end, and that way next week we'll ask them, do you know what the password is? Because if they didn't watch it all the way to the end, yeah. Okay, so what's our password? Purple donuts.
Okay.
Perfect.
Let's see if they watched it.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds
All
good,
right.
guys.
All right, great discussion. Really good.
Yeah, thanks for meeting later with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Problem. We'll see
We'll
you later.
see everybody next week.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.